Hello, salam, shalom, namaste, sat sri akal, aloha, hola, ciao, bonjour, buna, привет, mabuhay, and Jean Dobre. It's really, really good to be with you again, and I know you'll be so happy you've joined us today because we have a very cool guest with us, and it's Loralee Humpherys, who is a licensed spiritual health coach. That is so cool. Welcome, Laura Lee.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's good to be here.
Yes, it's so good to have you. And Laura Lee, please tell us more about who you are and what you do.
Okay. Well, I am, as you mentioned, a licensed spiritual health coach. I've been in the holistic health and healing world for most of my adult life. And what set me on this path was when I was in college in my early 20s, mid 20s, then I came in, or I experienced many um, experiences and ahas that led to my spiritual awakening.
Mm,
And it questioned, or it led me to question everything. And it felt like the rug was pulled out from underneath me of everything that I was taught, everything I thought of who I was and how life worked and how to do life came up for questioning. And it was a very tumultuous time. And there was a lot of emotional ups and downs. I had a hard time just making it through doing the basics of life, and as well as finishing school and then going out and getting a job, figuring out what I was going to do after I got done with college. And along the way, I read everything that I could find in terms of healing, spirituality, holistic health, psychology, family patterns. And I really just followed whatever my heart said, what in terms of the topics. And I found some books on energy healing or psychic work, working with the energy system. Um, so a lot of people will refer to that as like Reiki, but it goes much broader than just Reiki. But that just rattled my cage. I was so intrigued by it and I wanted to learn it. I wanted to experience it. It was so fascinating to me. And several years after I finished college, then a friend of mine had a lapidary shop, jewelry and lapidary. And I would go visit her and she would talk about this other customer that would come in to get crystals and such, and how she did energy healing work. And she would
mm,
clear energy or work on my friend's wrists, because when you're doing lapidary work, it's teeny tiny movements with fine tools, and you can get a lot of carpal tunnel and stuff going on with your wrists. And so I was like, oh my gosh, there's somebody in this town that knows energy work. Please, you got to introduce me. And so a few weeks later, I was happening to be in her shop and that woman came in. And so I connected with her and started being a client of hers to receive energy work and then learning everything that I could from her. And then a few months later, then I said, would you please teach me how to do this work? Because I just knew in my heart of hearts, that was the thing for me. And she said, sure, fine. And so that opened up or led to several years of learning from her and covering every aspect of self, of our relationship with ourself and with the body and the diet and cleansing and healing and relationships. I mean, across the board.
mm.
And so that's kind of my initial background into that. And then from there, I went into massage therapy, learned all about the body and how to work with that. And then a few years ago, well, several years ago now, I went back to school again for nutritional healing or holistic nutritional consulting to combine
Mm.
the nutrition and detox cleansing, physical care with all of that I learned. So I've combined it all
Yes,
together and here we are.
that's amazing. That's amazing. I really um, appreciate the open-mindedness with which you approached life and education and learning. I must tell you, like, when I was going through my own phase of trying to figure life out, trying to figure out how to help myself heal from deep trauma I had experienced and so forth, I also went on a quest to learn everything that I could, but there were things that I stayed away from. I was not open to, and that included, like energy work and such, um, until actually I had to first experience it. And it so happened that, like, if someone had said to me, oh, I'm an energy healer, come experience energy healing with me, I would have probably just brushed them off. But in this case, what happened was I joined a training program for applied positive psychology, which I was like very much into. And turns out that my teacher was also a Reiki healer. So she got us in to teach us about applied positive psychology. And then she was like, by the way, I have this other tool and modality that I use to help my clients. And why don't we give it a try in terms of just experience it and see how it goes. And by that time, I had developed enough trust in her to be like, sure, I'll give a try whatever you recommend, And so that's how I first got into energy healing. And once I experienced it, you cannot, there's no question of, you know, like my mind could question things. How could this work? How is it possible? But once you actually experience the feeling of lightness, of healing within yourself, then there's no. I mean, then it's like, okay, I can't deny what I just experienced, and so even if I don't understand how it's working, it's working. So,
Yeah, that's a big piece for a lot of people who are new to energy work is it's very subtle, it's non-tangible, you can't see it, well, unless you develop your psychic abilities. It is a very it's a paradigm shift for people. And that
yeah.
can be really difficult. And so for me, I've always been a reader, I've always been drawn to books. And so having found books, which I'm so grateful for, to give me the concepts that satisfy the left brain with all of the questions of how and why and what is this, and then other authors who really write about it and experience their work with the human energy system, then that really helps give a good, solid foundation to understand how energy works.
Yeah.
And so it's good for anybody, in your audience or anyone considering exploring this. It's important to be able to satisfy the questions of the left brain as well as the experience of the intuitive right brain, because you can't deny that. The experiential feelings and how it affects you, that is just as valid as your experience of reading book and understanding concepts of how the energy system works. So you really have to have both.
Yes. I must say, do you have any books that you recommend for people who want to better understand the energy healing aspect of things?
Hey, thanks for tuning into this episode. Hope you're getting value out of it. For your information, this episode has been sponsored by the Happiness 101 program. Are you a change maker, coach, trainer, or healer? Are chains of fear holding you back from making the impact and income you desire? Using a unique combination of positive psychology and the spiritual wisdom of our most effective change makers, the Happiness 101 program helps you break through your limiting beliefs and manifest the abundance and success you desire with fun and ease. Interested? Book a free Happiness 101 exploration call with me, your happiness expert, Samia Bano. Just use my online calendar link in the show notes. Now, back to the show.
Yeah, so there's a couple of authors that I found back in the day. Their books have been out for a while, and I consider them classics. They're excellent, excellent. There's a woman named Dr. Carolyn Meese, and her last name is Myss. She's written many, many books. She's got a really good channel on YouTube. She's a medical intuitive, meaning she's been able to develop the skill of sensing and reading and understanding the information contained within the energy system, and to be able to break it down in a way that's very understandable. So she's got several books. I would recommend anything of hers. And then there's another one, another woman called Dr. Barbara Ann Brennan. She's got like 3 books out. She's passed on now, but she's got 3 books out that are all about her experiences and her learning and about doing energy healing work. And then she formed a school to train healers how to do that. So one of her books is Hands of Light. Oh, and then the other 2 books, I don't remember off the top of my head, but you can look her up online or on Amazon. You will, once you find Hands of Light, you will see those other 2 books. Like the Soul Star, I think, and then Light Emerging is the second one. But yeah, if you find those, then that will lead you to all 3 of them. They're excellent, excellent books. And then the third one I would recommend is a woman named Carol Truman. And she has a book, again, it's been out for several years. It's very good. It's called Feelings Buried Alive, Never Die. So any of those authors would be excellent in helping give you a really good understanding of energy work and the energy system, how it works, kind of open the door to that world for people.
Yeah, thank you so much for those references. I know our listeners will very much appreciate that.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so, you know, one thing that I really have been looking forward to talking to you more about, Loralee, is, sort of like some of the challenges that people experience when it comes to achieving better health, especially like from a spiritual perspective. What would you say is like one of the main challenges you find people struggling with?
I can say at the root of much of that, the very core root, is the relationship with self. Of all of the things that we have been trained to believe about ourselves through all the indoctrinations in the family and education and religion and media, it goes back so deep. But deep down, we have been taught to believe we're nothing, we're powerless, we're worthless, everything negative. And so if you have that as your very base foundation of your concept of self, then there's going to be so many layers of actions and subsequent feelings and beliefs that really start creating this web of self-sabotage and limitation and, everything just doesn't work in your life. And so it is very challenging to unravel that web because there's so many layers, and it does take years, honestly. And when it comes to choices with food and caring for the body, all of those perceptions and definitions we've been trained to believe who we are, all of that influences our dietary choices, how we view our body, how we feel about it. And if we don't feel very good about ourselves, especially if we've had a hard, depressing day, chances are we're going to choose foods for our emotional eating patterns that are very, very addicting and very unhealthy. And if that goes on for a long period of time, then those foodstuffs, unhealthy foodstuffs, are going to deteriorate the physical tissues of the body. Then you have a whole other layer of complexity to deal with. And so I think it has to do with really being willing to look at the shadow self, which
Mm.
means facing the fears, the insecurities, the feelings of inadequacy, all of the feelings that result from the beliefs that we've held that tell us we are no good.
Yeah.
And that's hard to look at because it runs very deep.
Mm.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting that this is the problem that you highlight. I mean, I agree with you that this is definitely a problem that exists. And in some ways, it's like really surprising to me that this problem exists, especially in the context of like Western culture that's like so individualistic. I mean that in the sense that, like, you know, when I was in like a kid, basically from 0 to 18 years old, I was basically moving across countries in Asia, but that's, you know, where I grew up in Asia. And then when I was just about to turn 18, that's when we moved to America. And when I came to America, I experienced a very different culture than anything I had experienced in Asia. And one of the very in some ways shocking, but in other ways empowering aspect of the culture that I experienced here was the focus on the individual and this emphasis on, you know, like, I mean, I don't know, maybe it was just that when I got here and, you know, I started college, and maybe it was that I was so lucky that I happened to go to a college where I had teachers who were like, you know, so encouraging of, um, you know, like developing and becoming more aware of our strengths and developing our leadership skills. And, you know, there was just like so much emphasis on creating a strong, positive self-image and self-esteem, and like really believing in yourself and all of that. And in many ways, for me, that was very new experience. I had not um, really experienced that while I was growing up uh, in different parts of Asia. And so then when I started to come across like so many people with such deep-seated issues where they're struggling with their self-esteem, struggling with their self-image, I was like, wow, and it's happening here in America? And it just surprised me because, you know, there is, I mean, it wasn't just that I experienced what I experienced in college, but, you know, like even in the context of the workplace, the work culture, there is this value and emphasis to projecting a lot of confidence, being confident, you know, asserting yourself. And so for me, all of those expressions, I mean, how can you have so much insecurity and low self-esteem on the one hand, and then on the other hand, be projecting confidence and taking on leadership roles? And, you know, it just feels
Yeah.
very contradictory.
Yeah, it does seem like quite the paradox, doesn't it? So this is kind of my perspective on all of that. So the American culture in and of itself is what, 250, 300 years old? It's relatively young in comparison to, say, some of the Asian cultures or Russian or some of the African cultures that have been have this cultural identity for a couple thousand years, a long time. So I think that's one factor where we're still kind of teenagers, if you want to call it that. The other factor I think is the American, it's such a melting pot. People come here like you and your family from everywhere. And then it's like, oh, who are you? How do we get along? How do we communicate? That, there's this whole dynamic of melding things together. And that's one factor. And then another factor that I've come to really feel has a lot to do with the evolution of the soul, the evolution and development of the human. In that, you know how when it comes time for children to, like, quote, leave the nest, to go out on their own, to develop their sense of who they are, to be able to make a life and contribute to society and do all the things as a fully functioning adult without having the parents' strings or shadow, if you want to call it that, dictating how they're supposed to be and who they're supposed to be. That's a big step in individuation of this is who I am. As a spiritual being, this is what I'm about. This is my truth. This is my passion, my gifts I give to the world. There's a big step of spiritual maturation and development when you leave, quote, the tribe of everybody agrees on this is how we've done things. This is who we are. This is our tradition, and etc. And that has great value because that's our roots. It teaches us who we are, and we bond together to survive and to take care of one another and all those good things, and within that, there is a need for a sense of individuation of this is who I am within this tribe. This is how I believe and feel, and this is what I offer the tribe. So if you kind of follow me, there's this kind of subtle but not so subtle differentiation or maturation that occurs. You follow that? And so, in my opinion, in observation, that's the place where I think a lot of people get really hung up in our culture, because there is such an emphasis on go out and prove it to yourself and go chase and push and compete, and it's very masculine. And be the best in everything. And there's value in all things, yes. And let's balance it out with who are you? What are the intuitive, inner sense of self? And I think where this culture is so strong in those, quote, masculine attributes, that kind of backfires in that people really struggle with their self-confidence and self-worth because it's kind of out of balance. Do you follow what I mean?
Yes. Tell me a little bit more about, like, so if one has or is working towards the spiritual maturity that you were talking about, we need to achieve, like when you have that maturity, or you're wanting to achieve that maturity, where's the balance or what is the balance that you're striving for?
I think that's, each person is going to find that, and it could be kind of messy or along the way and finding what that balance is.
Yeah.
But I think it has to do with, just speaking for me, it's coming to a place where you can define yourself as your own spiritual soul entity of this is my truth, this is what I feel, and I can have my own connection with the divine, with God, however you want to define that and experience it, and receiving guidance, intuitive guidance from your spiritual connection of this is how I need to live my life, or how I choose to live my life. And then from that, to me, it's also a choice point of, as you come to understand yourself and who you are, absent of so much of the cultural conditioning, but your true self, and then make the decision of, am I going to honor life and love and serve and uplift and nurture and all the good things? Or am I going to choose to be very selfish and compete and power grab, and it's all for me at the expense of other people, and I don't care about other people. So I think there's that, and that has 100 different expressions and degrees.
Yeah. Yes.
But I think it's important that the individuation process happens to develop that sense of self, so that the individual can say, okay, this is who I am and what I'm about. I'm going to contribute to give back to my tribe because I love them and I want my tribe to continue. Or are you going to become a person that takes and steals and hurts and, you know,
Yeah.
does
Yeah.
that answer?
Yeah. You make me think about, the idea of a puzzle, like, and each of us being like a puzzle piece. So it's sort of like on the one hand, we need to recognize what puzzle piece we are, where we fit within the larger puzzle. So we need to have that sense of self and place that we hold that is unique. But at the same time, to to not lose awareness again of the fact that we are just one piece of a larger puzzle. So
Yeah.
to be in harmony with that larger whole.
Yeah, so there's a lot of nuances and a lot of layers, as you
Yeah.
can see, and it's so individualized. And it's, to me, that is the growth journey, the healing journey
Mm.
of discovering that and cultivating your relationship with yourself, and
Yeah.
being able to come out from underneath of, experiences like what you were mentioning. You had a lot of hard experiences when you were younger, of that the feelings and the beliefs that we decide about ourselves based upon trauma, often, well, it is not reflective of our true being, our
Mm.
true essence. And
Yeah.
that's the difficult work, I think,
Mm.
in being willing to look at those traumatic experiences and feel that emotion, which is just energy. Feel it so that it can leave you, so that you don't
Yeah.
get stuck in it and be victimized by it.
Yes.
On the other side of that emotional work is the gem of, oh my God, this is who I am. I have so much more worth than what I was told, you know?
Yes. You know, talking about being able to feel the feelings and let them go, get to the other side. You have so many amazing tools that you utilize to help your people through that process. Um, can you talk about one or two of those tools? Whichever one you would most love to talk about, let's start with that.
Okay. All right. Well, as you said, I have just several. Um, so kind of referring back to our conversation, or what we talked about earlier in the conversation about energy healing,
Yeah.
that to me has been a very profound tool and support in doing that inner work and being able to move through those traumatic feelings. Because that was a big draw for what pulled me, because I had a lot of that emotional confusion and fog to work through. And so that allowed me to face the shadow, face those feelings, understand it's only energy that has been stored within my body, my tissues. And by doing energy healing or meditation, I can allow that frozen energy to move, to kind of like melt, like ice melting, to move through my system and to be released. So
Yeah.
that's no longer trapped within, for example, my intestines or my liver.
Yeah.
So that's a hugely powerful tool. And then another tool.
Wait, before you talk about any other tool, can you tell me more about this one? So when we talk about using energy healing, I have a few questions for you.
Okay.
So for example, right now, um, I'm dealing with a person in my life. Actually, they're a family member. It's always more tricky to work with family members, right?
Yeah.
But this person, like from my perspective, it's as clear as day that they have experienced deep traumas and they need healing, mental, emotional healing from those traumas. And it's actually also impacting their physical health. But it's on the one hand, they do actually pay a lot of focus and attention to their physical health, trying to heal things at a physical level, but it's not producing very good results. And I'm like, well, I think it's because you're not at the same time addressing the mental, emotional aspect of things. But they're not very open to pursuing the route of mental emotional healing. Um, but so I'm like, okay, what if you try energy healing as a tool? Does that require, like, for somebody who doesn't want to talk about their feelings, for example, who does not want to think about what they've been through in the past because they find it traumatizing, etc. When you're uh, engaging in energy healing work, is that something that would be a part of the process? Like where they have to become aware and think about or talk through past experiences, or is that not, or does that not have to be a part of the equation? What, just if you can say something about that.
Okay, yes and no. So in approaching energy work, then again, this ties in with understanding ourselves, our energy system, and ourselves as we are energy beings. We are made of electrical and magnetic energy, first and foremost. And so we have our energy system is a very complex structure of our system of all kinds of energies woven together and moving and circulating through. Like, imagine kind of like a very complex computer circuit board. Energy's going everywhere. And so that is the blueprint that the body is built on. So if there's distortions in the energy system for a long period of time, that does impact physical health and contribute to the breakdown of the physical tissue. When it comes to addressing a lot of trauma, so I do energy work in the context of a massage where I'm working, as well as just a straight energy healing session. When there's a lot of trauma that's very buried in the subconscious, i.e. in the tissues of the body, then those energy healing and massage can assist in the body opening the door or softening, so to speak, to allow those energies to move. Because it's when you're doing emotional work, it's about allowing the frozen energy to move. And a lot of people are afraid of feeling those feelings again because they think it's going to take them immediately back to the original trauma, which was horrific. And why would I want to go there again?
Yeah.
And when I was receiving energy work and doing a lot of my own work, then my healer would say, it's not about that. It's simply about allowing the body to release the stored energy. And that was a big mind shift for me to understand what was actually happening. Because it's as long as that energy is stuck in the body, it's going to itch and irritate and rub. And so we don't want to feel that either.
Yeah.
But that when we're afraid of allowing the energy to flow, then we just prolong the pain. Right. And so having that foundational understanding of how energy works, how our energy system is, that can help in surrendering to the process, just relaxing into, okay, I know it's just allowing energy to move. And so there's lots of times when I have done work with a client, whether it's just a straight energy work session or when I do massage plus energy work, where I will sense the energy and be able to help them, release it or have them just focus on an area and breathe through it. That is one way to help soften the edges to move that energy. And then gradually, very naturally, things will come in, percolate up into the conscious mind of, oh, this is what I was feeling. Oh, that's what that is about. That connects to this pattern over here. Or this is what I needed to understand from that conversation with that person that I didn't, you'll get little insights that naturally come up into your awareness to assist you in moving through healing whatever that trauma was. And so it's both. You can approach it without having to be consciously aware, and there does come a time when it is important to understand certain things about that experience, because that is the lesson. That's the gem. And so it's being open to receive whatever it is you needed to learn from that experience, horrific as it may be, because that gives you strength and self-knowing and empowerment and all the good things that you can now apply to your life today going forward, that makes you a much better, stronger person.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, and the cool thing is that at least like to start the process, the healing process, the process of release, to get the energy moving again, like for somebody who doesn't want to go the traditional routes of, for example, traditional therapy, etc. This is a really good alternative.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it doesn't have to be just Reiki. There's several different types of energy healing modalities out there now.
Yeah.
Of varying degrees of skilled practitioners, and so it's incumbent to do your homework to research and the modality as well as the practitioner you're considering. But there are things that can help move stuff through you without having to go into the drama of it all.
Yeah. Okay. So tell me more about another modality that you love to use.
Okay, so that's the non-physical part of ourselves, the mental, emotional. And at some point in the healing journey, then we do have to take care of the physical body. You can't run away from that, especially if there's health concerns or health issues that have developed. Okay. So for me, when I was learning all this, I spent many years just focusing on the emotional, energetic work. And then as I got more educated about how to take care of the body and then went through massage school, I was like, oh, here's this whole other realm of things to take care of. But the biggest thing with the physical body is the diet. And because that dictates how everything else in the system, in the body works. And if we have, or if an individual has the typical standard American diet, a lot of fast foods, sugar, soda pop, desserts, a lot of refined foods, flours, it's a recipe for disaster.
Yeah.
And I think we've come far enough along the path now to really recognize, why is there so much obesity and diabetes and heart disease and cancer, on and on and on. Autism, 100 things. Americans are some of the sickest, or is one of the sickest countries in the world. And when you really dig into what is actually going on, a huge component is the food system. It's huge. There are so many chemicals that are so toxic, that are known to cause cancer, that are known to destroy and damage brain and nerve cells, that are known to cause diabetes. There's so many chemicals within the food supply that we don't even think about it. And often there's many other countries in Europe where those same chemicals are banned. Right. And yet they're dumped in our food supply here. And so, of course, everybody's so sick. So that is a huge, huge piece in really looking at people's relationship with food. What are you putting in your mouth? Why? Yeah. Why this choice versus that? Yeah. What is it about this food that you, just because it's convenient and it tastes good, that you're so attached to? What is the emotional component? And again, it goes back into the emotional work. What is the emotional association with these food choices that you're so attached to, and yet they're the very foods that are wreaking havoc with your gut, that's making you have diabetes, it's making you have health issues with your circulation, and on and on.
Yeah.
And so it's really looking at that relationship with the food. And oftentimes it will go back to what we were taught as children, emotional traumas, and all the emotional work. Okay. So that's one big piece. And then secondly, you've got to get all those toxic chemicals and the heavy metals and the parasites and the pathogenic microbes out of your body.
Right.
That's where detoxing and cleansing is a huge piece.
Mm.
And that also is very connected to our emotional health, because there's a lot of chemicals in the foods that disrupt our gut microbiome, which is where most of our immune system is. And it also disrupts the neurotransmitters, chemicals made in the gut that talk to our brain, that dictate and influence our moods and our mental clarity.
Yeah.
And so if those are all messed up, that biochemistry is messed up, you're not going to feel right. You're not going to think straight. And so that plays into all of the emotional stuff that we mentioned earlier. So you've got to address both the mental, the physical cleansing and diet, as well as the emotional health, the emotional well-being and mental health.
Yes. And I love that you highlight this connection between our mental, emotional health and our physical health. The first time that it really struck me that this connection exists, and how can it not exist, is actually when I was talking to one of my friends who happens to practice a faith. They're called the Brahma Kumaris. And very interestingly, like, one of their spiritual practices is to be really conscious about not only what they're eating, but even, like, for example, the way they cook their own food, because they're like, even the intentionality that goes into preparing the food is really important. And, they treat it like a meditative process in itself. And, also they're very conscious about choosing foods that are not only healthy for us from our perspective as humans, but they also think about it from the perspective of, like, how different foods are grown and how it's impacting the health of the planet and other living things that, we share the planet with. And so they think about, it in such a holistic fashion.
Yeah.
And they take what they eat and how they eat it, like, so seriously. It's such a central aspect of how they practice their faith in everyday life. And what my friend shared with me about, that everything has energy, everything has its own frequency. And so when you're eating uh, some junk food that may taste good, but if it's not been, if it's prepared in a way that not only is not healthy, but um, caused other kinds of harm and used bad harmful chemicals and things like that, it just all contributes to it inhabiting this very negative energy.
Mm-hmm.
And then we make it a part of us. It's like we are what we eat.
Yes.
And so we're literally taking in all this negative energy in a form that we don't even realize we're doing that.
Yes. Yeah, that's a big piece of everything. And it's what you were describing, that is such ancient wisdom, which is so beautiful. And in a lot of cultures, it's been, especially in the West, it's been totally lost. And it's wonderful to hear that, there's a group of people, or, subcultures that still have maintained that, because it's a beautiful thing. And I think in the coming years, Americans are going to have to learn that lesson too, because as we come to understand energy, that everything is frequency and light and vibration, and that we must return to healthy food in order to be healthy ourselves, then that opens a door to rekindle our connection with nature and the earth.
Yeah.
And, all the rest of the web of life that's been so damaged to understand is like, I mean, it's a deep, profound wisdom and medicine to really care for the earth, the soil, the microbes, because they are what provide healthy plants, which we ingest. And, to keep us healthy. I mean, it's this beautiful cycle of life, and understanding everything is frequency. The more love and gratitude that we can put into all of that process, it feeds everything. And then it can also help carry us into a refinement of the senses and our psychic abilities and awareness of things, to where we can begin sensing the consciousness or the spirit of plants, of animals, of the earth. And it's understanding that everything is alive. Everything has spirit, has consciousness in it, and we can communicate with it.
Yeah.
It's how, way back in the day, how a lot of healers and medicine women and men came to understand what the healing properties of plants are. They could tune into a plant, meditate with it, and sit with it, and sense its energy, its essence. To know, oh, this plant is helpful for the nerves. This plant calms the belly. This plant is good for muscular wounds.
Right.
Coming back to that awareness, that relationship with the rest of life.
Yeah, and it's like, everything that we experience at a mental, emotional level, or even at a spiritual level, it has a physical manifestation. So if there is a physical disease that you're experiencing, let's not be surprised that there may be a mental, emotional component to it.
For sure. That reminds me of another book that I really recommend that would really explain that relationship.
Yeah.
The woman's name is Ina Segal, Inna, and her book is The Secret Language of the Body. And she's broken down, and again, it also correlates back to what I was saying, the understanding of the energy system, the human energy field, and how it is, and what's where, the different types of frequencies. Because and also in traditional Chinese medicine, they have this understanding, and also in Ayurveda, there's some of this ancient traditional modalities know this information. In the West, we lost it. But so, for example, like the lungs, the emotional component of the lungs is grief and sorrow. So if somebody has had, say, like a death, a divorce, a very serious loss in their life, and they've not been able to adequately express that grief and cry those tears, that energy of grief and sadness and loss is going to settle into the lungs, the tissues, and is going to over time become more crystallized, or kind of like frozen, like water freezes. And then down the road, then the person can easily develop lung issues like infections or respiratory asthma and such.
Yes.
That's just one example, but there's,
Yes, it's so true. I mean, at one level, again, when I was first introduced to these concepts, they felt like, can't possibly be true. Just sounds like people making stuff up. But again, like once you experience the healing benefits of like actually applying the approach, like I've had various issues that I've struggled with in my life, like in terms of physical health, migraines, headaches, allergy-like symptoms, uh, inflammation in my hip, etc. And it's very interestingly, as I've gotten more and more and more um, healing of the traumas that I've experienced, and like my physical health has improved.
Yeah.
Like now it's actually relatively rare for me to have a migraine. And even now when I have a migraine, it lasts much less. The intensity of it is less, and stuff like that. So because now I have that awareness of, oh, I'm having a migraine. Could it be that, I'm carrying this stress or that tension or that burden, etc. And so then, I'm able to take some time and, practice letting go, releasing this and that. And actually for me also, I really, especially when it comes to migraines, I have to ask for help. I like, usually I go to my sister and I'm like, please send me some healing energy. Because even now, like, I struggle to help myself when it comes to migraines, at least until I ask for the help and support. And then something just shifts,
Yeah.
like once I ask for the help, and then everything else becomes easier, and then I can even help myself better.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the indications that the body gives us. It's all for our education. And
Yeah.
something I could add to that is you could ask yourself, do I have enough electrolytes and minerals?
Mm,
Did I eat something yesterday that had an ingredient in it that's agitating to the nervous system, to the brain?
right.
Because that will also stir up things. Is there
Yes.
a nutrient that you're missing in your diet? Is
Yes.
or toxicity in your digestive system that needs to be cleaned out because everything goes back to the gut. So it's
Yes.
ask, it's so much about the self-care and self-knowing is asking all of these different levels, the emotional, the energetic, the spirit, the physical, because it all ties together. And then from there,
Yes.
you learn more about yourself, and then you can know it's like, oh, this is what I need to take care of myself. I didn't do this yesterday, or ate that wrong yesterday, or something, you know?
Yes. When you mentioned thinking about what you might have eaten the day before and stuff, I've been actually having this experience in the last year or two, ever since I actually took a program where I was a student, and it was an intuitive eating program, learning about intuitive eating and so forth. And, the big emphasis for those of you who may not be familiar with intuitive eating, it's just basically about learning to really listen to our body and what wisdom it has around, this is what's good for me, this is what I need right now, eat this now or don't eat that. They're just learning to really tune into the body's wisdom and what the body is telling you in that moment about what to eat, how to eat, how much to eat. Like
Yeah.
I had a big issue with that. Um, and so now I see that when I eat something that I know, like my inner self, there's a part of me that's like, don't eat that, Samia, that's not the best for you. But then there's another rebellious part of me that's like, no, I want to. And then I'll go ahead and eat that uh, thing. But then, I noticed that more and more my stomach has become very sensitive. Like it will just want to expel that out of me as soon as possible. And, I'll get like loose motions or, just like that feeling of, of upset stomach or something not feeling quite right in my tummy. And I've just become more aware of of the connection between my
Yeah.
having eaten something that my body was like, Sammy, that's not best for you. And then I eat it and then I actually feel a consequence.
Yeah, that's an ongoing, that part never ends. I don't think. I mean, I still have it myself of just always that of the discipline of caring for yourself, listening to your body and honoring it, and because it does know what it needs, and identifying the little voice. It's like, oh, but I want it. And it's like, well, who's talking right now? Is it the parasites in the gut that's hungry, or is it true hunger? You know?
Yeah.
And it's always, there's always that discernment, but it is very important to really listen to the body and connect with it. And I think that also connects with how we view ourselves, how we have been taught to view our body, that oftentimes it's just, well, I it's kind of an extreme example, but I think you'll get the point. So oftentimes in history of so many wars, then men were just gathered up and thrown out into the battlefield, like, and all these bodies just killed and destroyed like fodder.
Yeah.
There's no honoring, there's no respect for the body. It's just something dispensable, something just to throw away and destroy and cut up and damage.
Yeah.
Or even what you find a lots of times in the medical system, they're very anxious about cutting in to organs or taking them out rather than understanding that there's another way. It's seeing the body as a divine gift. It has its own level of intelligence.
Yeah.
It's our home for our spirit, and really honoring that and what it has to say, rather than approaching the body like a used car or something just to throw away and to mistreat.
Right. Yeah, I mean, we take our body for granted in so many ways. For example, we are so willing to compromise its needs when it comes to sleep. You're like, work, be productive, make more money, or even just if you want to have fun and party, and you're like, yeah, forget sleep.
Yeah.
And you just kind of sort of do all these different things that are not good for your body, but you still push through and do those things anyway. And so, yeah, for sure, there is a certain lack of, and isn't that also amazing that we do take our bodies for granted in this kind of way, given that like literally we would not exist in this world without our bodies?
Yes, it's interesting when you really look at it. It's like, wow, we're so disconnected in so many ways. And I think it ties back to, again, acknowledging the web of life, that we're so connected to all of nature, because the bodies is made of elements of the nature and food we eat. And also, I think it goes back to, who are you? What is your relationship with self? Have you cultivated? And do you nurture and love yourself? Because if you do that, you're going to nurture and love your body.
Right.
It's so interconnected.
Yes. Loralee, I could keep talking with you the whole day. And oh my gosh, I think we have to wrap up for today. Do you have any last?
We covered so many things.
I know. We'll have to bring you back so we can keep talking. But for now, do you have any last thoughts you want to share?
I would say for your audience and your listeners, just to really take some time to sit with yourself and just honor you. And just appreciate all that you've been through, all that you've learned, all of the ups and downs, and just take a minute and just have gratitude for you and your life and all that you've experienced here. So.
Thank you so much for that.
Yeah.
So for my last reminder, I will only say to our audience, please make sure you check the show notes, because I will be dropping Loralee's links in there so you can connect with her and continue to learn with her and get the help and support that you need whenever you're ready for it. And I think we're actually even going to be including a free gift that Loralee is offering for you. So make sure you check it out. Take advantage of the free gift. And until we connect next time, I wish you lots and lots of peace and joy.
Thanks for having me.